Today's episode of Slotshotpodcast is brought to you by J.G. Wentworth. Do you have a structured settlement but need cash now? Call J.G. Wentworth. J.G. Wentworth has completed more structured settlement payment sale transactions than any other company and has streamlined the process to make it as smooth as possible for its customers. J.G. Wentworth, 877-CASH-NOW.
Welcome back to Slotshotpodcast, a hockey podcast. We're back in studio for another exciting week in the National as we continue on down to next week's All-Star break and the Termite show that Rusty is well prepared for, and he's doing his homework, so we're proud of you there, Rusty. But
Chipping away, nibbling away.
Good way to put it. Boys, as we always do on the pod, let's check in with the co-hosts. Armdog, Rusty, how are we doing, boys?
I'm doing great. I mean, we were all together Sunday for just a monumental day. Lions now in the NFC Championship. I know this is a hockey pod, but this is about
excited about it.
It's about fandom here. You know, it's about suffering for so long and it tastes better. I've long subscribed to the theory that liking a bad team is better, actually, because then when the good stuff comes, it's just the reward is so much better. And right now, I'm feeling that. So, really good. Wings have been hot too. The last two Lions games, Wings have won the same night, including the double Tampa sweep on this most recent Sunday. So, pretty good week in sports for me. And just general, all the teams I like are playing well, except for the Pistons, but I don't really care about basketball, so we're good on that.
I forgot you're a Pistons fan. Still always
I mean, I forgot too.
I'm not going to lie to you, Army. You know, it's been it's been a joyride following your Lions run here. So I'm definitely pulling for you. I got some action on the boys again this weekend. Was a good little sit, good little hang. Some decent football there on Sunday after a kind of disappointing Saturday in the week prior. But yeah, I mean I'm doing very well. You know, it's the Bruins have the best record in the league. They just beat the best of the West Winnipeg 4-0. It must be January. It must be January. 4-1.
But yeah. No, I'm happy for you. Hey, that's the most optimistic you've been about the Bruins probably all year. So you got to take that with what you can, because Ross is critical of his Bruins as always. But
I talked about adversity. That was a 1-1-3 stretch. That's the most adversity the Bruins have been through in the last 2 years.
I hear you. You know what was the highlight of the weekend, boys?
They've won 5 straight going into tonight.
Highlight of the weekend, Saturday. The boys hit a little pond hockey. Final game of the day. The Slotshot team piles up with chatter, and we took home the dub, which was a fun little skate in Chicago as it was cold enough to get on the pond, which was a fun little atmo. At least I thought so.
No, that was awesome. It really was. We had like the text going around. Jack's texting around on a Friday night saying we're going to start playing pond hockey at 10 a.m. I'm like, yeah, all right, Jack. Fucking A. I guess kicked off a one pond, found that water hazard at Sidney Maravitz, and it was gorgeous. What a gorgeous blue bird. Yep. Actually, like taking the pretty tough weather of having it be 0 degrees for a week and enjoying the benefits of winter, getting outside, and that was awesome. That was just a great, and literally 48 hours later we get 40-degree rain and everything's ruined. So really glad we had
to get it in.
We carped the diem.
It made the week of 0 feel worth it, because the 20 felt like 45 and sunny. You know, I was out there in a jersey, in a hoodie, and I was warm. It couldn't have been a better day. I mean, it was pretty awesome. Great. Although we went to go watch football after. Rusty gave me a ride, and getting out of that car after 4 hours of skating, I didn't realize because I was so jacked up to be out there. The weather was nice, and then whole body just locked up. Yeah. I think it happened for all of us. We're all like just kind of stretching around for the rest of the day. So. But it was awesome and worth it. I'll do it 10 out of 10 times again.
Absolutely.
Not to mention Monday night broke in the Troubadour with my first bar in Gino with the Jacob Trouba twig.
Oh yeah,
it was a big snipe.
First game in the Trouba stick. First 2 shifts in, you got that hooking penalty. It was. I mean, Army and I were sitting next to each other on the bench, and I was watching it. Army was a little tuned out, but it was pretty predictable. But getting into the pod
Well, just some context for our listeners. We promised we wouldn't talk a lot of beer league, but I infamously used a gigantic stick, and I ordered a couple Pro Stock twigs online that are Jacob Trouba twigs. and this one's like 4 inches larger than the
least.
other one. The other one's like large for somebody 6'2". This one was like large for somebody 6'4". And so I tried using it without chopping it down, and it was a bit of a bit of an adventure. Ultimately changed twigs mid game and got them chopped. But hey, I'm stoked about the troubadour twigs. They're rocking and rolling.
Getting into it was an interesting experience, no question about that. We enjoyed it from the bench. Hopping into the podcast itself, a fun one tonight. The big storyline today is the latest happenings within the Team Canada and their World Junior program for 2018. Patrick Waugh steps out of the junior world and back into the national, signing and becoming the next head coach of the New York Islanders. We got the return of the Worm as he's back in Edmonton. Shane Pinto returned for Ottawa. Vegas Golden Knights, a little bit of a struggle fest there, and some interesting comments from Butch Cassidy as he called out the squad recently. And then Rusty's got some a little bit of a debate of what the state of the Blackhawks look like with all the big contracts that they've been handing out to some veterans. And then finally,
Halloween on Madison here, just giving out candy at the door. We're going to have to talk about that.
We will. And then always the return of Loose Change, Termite of the Week, Arm Dog edition, and then the Saturday picks as Arm has made it a race, 9-5 for the leaders. It's a two-man race at this point right now, as I still struggle to stay away from the 500 mark, but we'll get into Saturday picks as we continue along the episode. Let's get into it. Let's set the stage. Team Canada report in the Globe of Toronto came out today, stating that the London, Ontario police had furthered their investigation regarding an incident with the 2018 World Junior team after celebrating it in, I think, June or July at a gala in, I think it was in Toronto. But some misconduct and sexual misconduct has been brought to the attention of the police, and in a report that was filed a few years ago by a law firm hired by Team Canada. They found some stuff did happen, and things are being investigated, and it is proceeding in that direction as a few players have taken some leave of absences from their NHL squads. Boys, the list: Dylan Dubé leaves the Calgary Flames. Carter Hart leaves the Philadelphia Flyers. Cal Foote and Mike McLeod leaving the Edmonton Oilers and Carolina Devils.
The New Jersey Devils.
Yep, thank you. And then who's the guy up in Switzerland?
Fairmont,
I think is how you pronounce the name.
He was a Sens prospect. Don't know if he still is.
He's playing abroad. It's not an NHL topic, but yeah. I mean, hey, we're not going to get into the alleged events and the legal talk, but these are some real names that are departing NHL teams that look to be, like the press release said, indefinite, right? This stuff takes time, as we know from all sports. Innocent until proven guilty, but we're here to talk about hockey and taking these guys out of the lineup. I mean, Carter Hart having a great season for the number 2 team in the Metro right now on points. Point percentage is a little shaky, but that's definitely the biggest hit. Dubé is a hit to Calgary. He's been playing big minutes for them. And McLeod, who's played a huge role for New Jersey this year
to stay afloat,
and they're really struggling, obviously, without Jack Hughes right now. So, bit of a kick in the schmenzer there for a couple of teams. You have obviously Philadelphia overachieving. You have New Jersey underachieving, and McLeod, who's been a bright spot. That's a huge loss. Cal Foote, I mean, that hurts some defensive depth and might be something to address at deadline if they're in it. And then Dubé could have maybe been a trading piece for Calgary. Unclear, exactly how that fits in. Calgary's in the mix-ish, but those are all very legit NHLers. It's not the superstars that it probably could have been, save for Hart. But there's a real hockey impact to these developments. And it's obviously the story of the week, but we're not lawyers and nor detectives, but a significant piece of news this week, Army.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think it's super weird how this has gone down. It happened in 2018 and now in 2024.
Well, there is no statute of limitations in Canada regarding this issue.
Sure,
Thank you,
but
Mailbag.
It does sound like there will be a press release from the police of London, the city of London of Ontario, on Monday the 5th, I believe. So there is a little bit of a wait and see what happens here for the next 2 weeks regarding the incident itself. Like Ross said, we are here to debate the hockey side of the things and how this affects potentially these teams and what the outlook could look like from here.
Well, the other thing I think will be interesting is and we don't know what's going to happen with any of this right now. We don't even know for sure if these guys are being called to it. It just seems pretty likely that they are, given all the releases we've seen so far. But I also read, and this is not from a confirmed source, but speculation that Carter Hart was being the Philly was looking to move him because they had an idea that this might be imminent and that this might be coming up soon.
That's a pretty greasy move.
Well, I just wonder. The reason I say in terms of future outcome for these teams is when it let's say they're proven guilty for whatever this and they're not going to have NHL careers. Is this going to have an impact on the teams, or is the NHL going to look to step in and say, "Did you guys know anything?" I doubt it, but it's something that if Philly was looking to trade him, knowing that this was probably looming, I think it's a really bad look on the franchise. And then also, I don't know if there's, I really don't know what could happen.
So my point on that trade bait topic, this is the first I've heard about them shopping Hart because they thought this.
And
might
this
have
was
been
a
coming.
speculative tweet.
Got it. Right. And so if there's real evidence of Philly trying to pull the fleece over somebody and do that,
that'd be pretty wild.
I'm doubtful of that based on who the Flyers have running things and the general boys club amongst GMs in the NHL, where it's you don't do that to somebody because you need your other GMs to believe that they're doing business on a leveled field. And if you have insider information about one of your assets and you flip him because there's an asymmetry, nobody you're done in the league. You are done in the league.
I just don't know if it was insider info. I think everyone's pretty I would assume all GMs are pretty closely tied to a lot of Team Canada's.
To go off of it, the NHL in 22 open their own investigation. Bill Daly said they will have their own statement from the league here soon, but the league has been monitoring this as well, so I think the league would probably shut that down if that had happened with a Hart trade, with this thing coming down. So the league has been very aware of what's been going on, and
there have been a lot of rumors about this, over the last few years, right? This isn't the first we've heard of it, but this is the beginning of some bombshell reporting that's probably going to happen over the next year.
In terms of the changes of a little bit of the history with Team Canada, the whole pretty much front office of this had been a changeover. I believe the board of directors completely saw new faces as they had been found that Team Canada potentially used funds that they've raised with minor hockey and local hockey teams' fees for the season. So there's speculation about what the funds were to pay off a settlement that they have apparently paid off about $8 million worth of settlements in terms of prior happenings. In specific 2003, I think there was an incident as well. So there's been some sketchy stuff from the Team Canada side of things, and it's a very serious monitoring situation that's happening here. And yes, Team Canada has taken their steps to try and change the face of their organization, but something from 2018 has been hanging on their heads for a long time. We've talked about this a little bit. I think you've hinted at it in potentially probably our last season pod with talking about McLeod of there is potentially a hanging history here of what could happen here, and we're finally starting to see that happen. But
if you guys remember, there were some members of that team that came out and said they had nothing to do with it. That was
correct.
And we talked about how that was maybe a little bit of throwing the boys under the bus a little bit, but I don't know. It's hard to really have opinions about acting on this stuff until the facts are known. Right now, there's reports and there's a leaked legal document, and that's all part of the allegations. So I do think it's in our best interest to avoid strong opinions in the absence of information, especially around something as sensitive as potentially violent sex charges. So
Yep.
I do think two outcomes that are probably both bad that I think will probably have already started to happen is this is just a resurfacing of a bad look for the Canada development whole system. And we talked about how the U.S. is having all these successes, and we critiqued some of their style of play and their vibe, but they're succeeding.
Yeah. Yep.
I was in Toronto when this first got when the whole shuffle up happened in 2018, and I was surprised. There's a lot of people who are pretty pissed off at what that whole system is with the Canadian, like just general
The
junior
structure
hockey.
of Hockey Canada.
Yep.
Hockey Canada and all the junior programs that work there, and how these kids are just treated like royalty for anything. It can be like them, like, I don't know, just like random examples, not based on anything, but like a DUI they get off, or a speeding ticket they get off. And
The best comparison to our listeners that aren't that familiar, it's like the big-time college football people
Yeah.
in the big-time college football towns. Tallahassee police, you think they're busting Florida State guys' chops?
Exactly.
No, they're covering it up, right? A lot of us saw that Swamp Kings, right, about Gainesville,
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
what it's like there. So, like, that's how it is, Tuscaloosa, right? All of these major college hockey towns, it's kind of like that throughout the whole country of Canada, right?
I know, but the overwhelming like vibe of it and what people were feeling, that I felt at least, was like people were pretty fed up with it at this point. And it seemed like something was about to bubble over. Then obviously this thing kind of just goes away. Everyone knows about it, and it's hanging over their head, but not really actively. Now it's back. I wonder if there's going to be a secondary shuffle up. I don't know what's going to go on there, but it's something to watch there. And then the second point that I think is just unfortunate is, like, once ESPN has the facts to be able to report on this fully, this is going to be on SportsCenter. If something does come up here, 5 NHLers or 4 NHLers are getting a lawsuit filed against them, ESPN's going to report that. And they don't report enough hockey. It's just it's an unfortunate thing to have happen for the league image right now.
Well, there might even I don't
Criminal charges.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know the
The extent of it, we're unsure of the extent, but it could get as serious. It could get as serious as it can get.
And I don't know the business side of it, intimately, and I don't want to over dramatize how wide sweeping the impacts of this event could be. But you're talking about ESPN needing to report it and it being a bad look.
I mean, this could be on CNN. This could be on everything.
Hold on. The where I'm going is maybe that contract ESPN signed for the TV rights isn't yielding the results that ESPN wanted. There's been a lot in the news about the Disney Corporation and what they're doing and thinking about spinning things off.
Yep.
What if this is used as some kind of a fraudulent thing, finding that the NHL was complicit in some of the cover-up, using this as some kind of a legal precedent to get out of that contract and bring the NHL TV rights back to bid and letting them get some of their money back and out of things? Again, over-dramatizing. Don't know if they can do that. Don't know if this is part of it. Don't even know if the NHL is partly liable in this. But it's a big due diligence moment here for hockey in North America.
Yep.
And it's just unfortunate. Like it's going to be covered, and ESPN in the U.S. gives about 2 minutes of airtime on hockey a night. SportsCenter.
I think this is going to be much more major than this.
This is going to be covered, but that's my
news
point.
networks.
It's probably going to be like most of the coverage for the month is going to be this, as opposed to like. I think. So, I mean, have you watched SportsCenter in the past year?
Yes, I get what you're saying.
You get, like,
Not
one-
really. I mean, not really.
You get one top 10 goal, and you get maybe a game's highlights if like McDavid and Bedard play. But
Well,
like
and I
that's
think
it.
they're still trying to figure things out with the shift of Barry Melrose leaving. He was kind of their SportsCenter guy, so I think they're still trying to figure things out.
But Arm, to your point, I mean, look at what ESPN's done for its other broadcast partners, major leagues. Like, there's been a lot of greasy shit going on in the NBA and the NFL. They don't talk about that all the time. They give it its week of coverage when it's hot, but then it's
the difference
it's
is
onto
like
something
like
else.
when something bad happens in the NFL, they have plenty of highlights to cover it up. They don't have that. They don't
Right.
show those for the NHL.
I
So I
understand
think
what
like
you're
for
saying.
the casual sports fan, this is going to be a lot of what they see. And I don't know. It's a disappointing look for
perception.
the
Yep.
league.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean it shouldn't be covered, but it's I think it's a pivotal moment for like the league, and they're trying to make their next step. And like the NBA is doing super well. They're marketing super well. You want the NHL to have a little bit more popularity.
I
love it.
I hear you. I ultimately think it's that earth-shattering event for the 5 players that are currently implied than it is so much for the league, the sport, big picture. A lot of the coverage, right, like we do, we follow it really closely. We try to filter the real hockey news through to our listeners, and the real hockey news comes from Canada. And in Canada, this is the number one story.
Yep.
So I get that, but our filter is the Canadian filter, and it's a much bigger story in Canada than it is down here in the States.
Yeah, it's huge.
Agreed. Moving on from Team Canada and the latest happenings there, we'll keep an eye on that as the story develops. Moving on to Patrick Waugh. Patrick Waugh made his debut as the Islanders coach versus the Dallas Stars in a 3-2 win and an overtime win with a Bo Horvat winner. He would end up losing the next game to the Golden Knights 3-2, but Patrick Waugh, who was with the Quebec Ramparts of the Q or of the
Quebec Rampart in the
QH
LQMHL.
Yep. Owner or I think owner, manager, and coach of the team at that point. But he comes over as the replacement for Lou Lambert in
Lane Lambert.
Lane Lambert, thank you. Close.
Decision made by Lou Lamoriello.
Sorry, too many L's to.
That's a lot of L's.
A lot of L's to process. But the Islanders, it was a tough stretch of hockey as they played themselves out of a wild card spot. They're still in that race for sure, but after a tough stretch, including losses to the Hawks, the Predators, the Wild, and the Jets, a good team, but things were needed to change, and Islanders fans were calling for Lane's head pretty early into the season, so a shuffle needed to happen, and that is what happened here in the Islanders hockey, and Patrick Waugh steps into the head role for the Isles. What do we got, boys?
I mean, I'm thrilled to have Patrick Waugh back in the NHL, and he's just, for our listeners that aren't super initiated or younger or newer, like, this guy is, that 1, 2, or 3 best goalie of all time, one of the most intense competitors of all time. His track record, rookie year 1986, Conn Smythe Trophy, wins the Stanley Cup for the Montreal Canadiens. Has another performance like that for the Canadiens in, 94, 93. Gets into a shit fit with the Habs front office and gets traded, demands a trade, goes to Colorado in his first year, wins a cup. Is the backbone of a second cup team in Colorado, so that's a 4-time champ, I think 3-time Conn Smythe. He is just, the term GOAT is totally thrown around and abused. He's absolutely in that conversation as a goalie, but what I love so much about it is his intensity, his fire. I give the French-speaking group, a lot of flack often, but there is that sort of like that kind of passion from it. It's almost like the American-Italian culture thing, and Patty Waugh is the epitome of that. So it's exciting to see him in there. The last time he was an NHL head coach, we saw some of the fireworks, screaming back and forth with other coaches, and it's all great fun, and it's interesting to look at the Islanders and the impact he could have. But just as an opening thought before I pass to you guys, I'm just thrilled to have Patty Waugh back in the show. I
think we were watching the game on Sunday night, and we couldn't quite figure out if he was just screaming every time he was opening his mouth, or it's just quietly. Just vocal, very vocal with his mouth features as he was talking to the team, but it always felt like he was kind of going towards the 8, 9, 10 levels of the octave levels. But
I think intensity's always through the roof with him, and so it looks like he's screaming like into his players' ears.
Right.
But I think he's really just communicating, and that's how he does it. But
in terms of that game on Sunday night, we can cover it in loose change if we want. But
it's the loose change topic. This is really about Waugh and the change for the Isles. What do you got, Army?
Yeah, so I'm pretty fired up about it because I saw Barzal's interview after this 3-2. They had a comeback win where they eventually win in OT. But Barzal in the locker room was pretty fired up because he was like, and we've talked about Barzal, would he be more dynamic in a different system than what the Islanders have been so accustomed to, which is just clamp down, and just like minimum shots. So they have this comeback win. The first thing I noticed, they give up 43 shots on goal that game. I don't remember the last time the Islanders have done that. They only had like 25, but they get the win out. And then you have
Barzal, physical bunch in that one.
Yeah, but you have Barzal in the locker room being like, I'm excited about this because this is like free-flowing hockey. This is about like making plays and moving the puck. And I think it's the first time really in his career he's been like, had a system where he can do that. And he's the type of player who like seemingly should flourish in that environment. And like every time I think about the Islanders, I'm like, how good are these players? Because they just play a completely different brand of hockey from like 80% of the league, And those other teams kind of shuffle each year. The Islanders are just consistent with clamped down hockey. Second game, they end up losing 3-2 to the Knights, but they have 43 shots on goal. So like this is Islanders hockey I have not seen. So for me, seeing all these players that seemingly were like under this veil of a system are
behind
now
the Iron Curtain.
Very, very boring system.
I know, but now they're going to get like they're freed loose a little bit, and I think like seeing a Barzal, probably the most skilled player on the team, a guy who's like meant to be their top point producer, being excited about what's coming next, is pretty awesome. And Waugh is a character too, so like you got to love that. But
absolutely,
like the idea of a character coming in who's also going to open up the hockey is awesome to me, and it will make the Islanders more worth watching. I mean, we had the freaking on national TV when Biz Nasty said, "I found the only thing worse than getting coal in your stocking for Christmas, Islanders season tickets." And that was literally what the Islanders were like. They were horrible to watch. I mean, the games were just a dread because it was neutral zone turnovers.
This has been the public face of it, but the term Islander hockey There's no other franchise in the NHL that has so consistently had their team style of play represent something that's been so fixed for so long. Islander hockey, since they've been really like a playoff contender, playoff relevant, right? This current stretch, it's been like 6, 7, 8 years of clamp down, and they've had that
force you to make the mistakes.
A little bit of the stink of being like the modern trap team, a little bit. And the term boring's used. I don't love it because we love the bottom, fourth line identity line. That's entertaining to me. But no, it's definitely exciting and it's something new. Before we move on, I want to ask you guys. I'm throwing you on the spot. Favorite Patty Waugh moment of all time? Do you have one?
Yeah, him not getting pulled against the wings and shattering his mentality for that whole season.
I think the fight with Osgood.
Yeah, no, the Avs Wings fight. That's obviously
the Claude,
one of the big ones.
Claude and that's an unbelievable.
I think my favorite Waugh moment. Just full disclosure here, right? French Canadian guy goes to the Canadians, is like the best goalie in the league, wins 2 cups with them.
Yep.
That was before I was, I was 3 years old when he left the Habs, right? So that part of my memory, and I'm pretty sure Cam Neely actually kind of had his number in those rivalry seasons, but. Waugh's time with Montreal is away from my trauma with Montreal. So I really think of him more as an Avalanche because we were an Avalanche household and the Bruins were so irrelevant that it was always about Colorado and Detroit. My brother's a Forsberg guy, and so we were all into that.
The reason I think hockey is so important is because of those teams. I mean, Patrick Waugh and those guys, I mean, they created what Avalanche hockey is, and they really grew the sport in Denver. So I give them a lot of credit.
And that was the first year. Waugh came over, and the first year the Quebec Nordiques moved to Denver, so that was huge.
And now you see, DU's a powerhouse. I mean, the Avs are always consistent. It's changed things.
Yeah, all right. Maybe a bit of a reach, but I'll allow it. But I was just saying, my favorite Waugh moment, and he's going to be a soundbite machine, which we can't wait for. My favorite Waugh moment, and all these things resurface, right? You follow these Instagram accounts, see all these old school things. My favorite Waugh moment, he got into it with Jeremy Roenick. I think they were in a playoff series.
Yep.
They're in a playoff series when he was with
Chicago and Colorado.
I think so. Or
it was.
Okay. All right. And so Roenick had a beautiful goal. And Waugh said something to him, and like they were jawing on the ice. Roenick's asked after the game. He says, "Yeah, I don't know what Patrick's talking about. He must have been pretty busy fishing his jock out of the third row." And Patty Waugh gets the rebuttal. He says, I couldn't really hear what JR saying because I had my 2 Stanley Cup ring blocking my ear."
Yep.
In his little French accent. It's just such a money suck my dick quote. And he obviously backed it up going on that year to win it all.
Yep.
But no, I'm excited about it. And despite his Habs ties, looking at his whole career resume, I've always, in my lifetime, been a Patty Waugh supporter.
Yeah, no, I think to wrap up on my side of things, I think you talked about unlocking Barzal. I think this is really going to see, hopefully, an uptick in their stars to be able to score. Hopefully, you'll see a little bit of an increase from Bo Horvat. If Barzal can score, you're kind of starting to unlock what they brought these guys in to do, and that's where I think you're going to see Islander hockey change a little bit.
2 points. One, on his impact on the Islanders, Sorokin,
yep.
That's another top dog goalie. Now he's got Patrick Waugh as his head coach. It'll be interesting to see how that develops, right? Is there even another level for him to get to? I don't know, but is that constructive? It could be destructive. We'll see. That's interesting. Another final point in closing, just to kick Montreal when they're down. They lost 9-4 to the Bruins last weekend, and Patrick Waugh embodies everything Montreal's done that's made them so irrelevant today. The egos in Montreal to think that they can move on from Patrick Waugh the way that they did, and they haven't sniffed another cup since. Don't even tell me about that cup run in the fake Canadian Conference BS season when Carey Price carried them to, a 5-game sweep? I mean, they haven't sniffed a cup since dismissing Waugh, and Waugh is really the embodiment of the arrogance in Montreal around their failures. So that's another reason why I love Patty.
What better than a Montreal Islanders matchup tomorrow night in the Bell Center? So we'll be tuned into that one as Patty Waugh makes his 3rd game as the head coach in Montreal. Final thoughts, Arm?
No, I got the Barzal quote for you, though. I'm not apparently he did call out Lane Lambert, too.
I believe it.
Directly a little bit more, but this is not the quote. He goes, "I'm not taking away anything from what we've been told in the past." And then like some middle quote, but he goes, "Holding the puck, wanting to tilt to ice, that's music to my ears." I'm excited. I just want to see these guys be able to do something creative, you know?
Yep. No, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a big storyline to watch as the Islanders try and recover and make a push for a wild card spot in the Eastern Conference.
Last thing on the Islanders, they've had a little bit of a struggle. We've talked about what seems like a pretty low ceiling for their team. I think they're still a tough out in
Correct.
a playoff series. I don't think anybody wants them.
It's a tough team. There's no question about that, and they tend to play close games. So we'll see what kind of transpires here on the island. But moving on. We are a Corey Perry podcast, as we've talked about. The Worm is back. He has signed a contract of 1 year. I think league minimum of $775 for the remainder of the season with the Edmonton Oilers.
That'll dovetail nicely on what the Hawks are going to have to pay him after that legal fight.
We'll see. I mean, he took full responsibility in his press conference. He mentioned that he has taken the time and sought out help with his counselors and it does sound like he did receive some help and it did mention the mental health side of things a little bit as well. But the Worm goes to a team that has 14 straight wins in the Edmonton Oilers and is joining the right boat as he continues to bounce around. I mean, as much as you look at it, if he does file a grievance with the Players Association, he could be walking out with about almost $5 million of cash and potentially a ring or at least a conference final appearance. So I mean, the worm has made out well in this one. But Corey Perry signs with the Edmonton Oilers after taking basically a sober January and a little bit of December. Corey Perry is back.
Just one thing on the off ice bit, the press conference. I found it mildly laughable, talking about the long time and the self-reflection and the long 2 months he spent really changing his life. I mean, you gotta say it, but I thought it was kind of laughable. But landing in a place like Edmonton, who obviously is the number one team right now, we were talking about where Perry could go, earlier in the process here, and a couple things that we had to call on is. He's not the fleetest of foot, right? And it's not like he's coming into your top six, right? He's playing in your bottom six and probably power play 2, et cetera, but can have a real impact, especially in a playoff series. We've seen that, right, 5 of the last 6 years or so. But if any team can spare some speed, right, it might be Edmonton. So seeing him go in there, I just think it's a great fit. It's a little, Zach Hyman right now is playing some of the best hockey in the league. He's probably a top 15 player right now, forward right now in the league, just the way that he's playing. So I'm not saying Corey Perry is Zach Hyman insurance, because Corey Perry's game cannot get to where Hyman's is, not even close. But God forbid something happens to Hyman, or we've seen we've seen how playoffs go. Guys are always playing through things, et cetera, and you never know how it could go. Perry could be that kind of second, backup plan, net front power play that gives them just a little bit more depth. And obviously, championship pedigree. He's played in 1 million playoff games, and he's the right kind of guy that I think you want.
Oh, and I think you'll see him, as you said, kind of slotted in the bottom 6, but he's a guy that can get away with playing with top players, so you can kind of shift him around. Yes, this team is so top-heavy on their power play 1, as they should be, but kind of brings that Hyman-ish presence to that power play 2 in terms of a net presence when they're out there, if he sees that time. But, I think it brings a little bit of reliability. And Perry was having a good year in Chicago. I mean, he was producing. He was leading by example. Obviously that changed quickly.
We caught him there.
But
right.
yes,
yeah.
I think this is an interesting pickup and only adds a little bit of insurance to this Edmonton team that is flourishing.
What do we got from the Arm Dog?
It's a no-brainer. At a league minimum, like on a 1-year deal, it's like a yes. You can scratch him if you want to, Yeah, great move. I know Evander Kane is not really fitting onto the second line. They're juicing up the top line, and Evander Kane is not really working with Draisaitl, and Fogle seems like he's there to stay with. Like, he's playing so well next to Draisaitl, so I think they're tied together right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Corey Perry gets bumped up there.
Played with Bedard a little bit this year, and it looked good for the time being. So
it's just like it's no downside. He's going to be better than one of your fourth liners. That's true.
And in Edmonton's doldrums, right? Sometimes there were games where they were playing frustrated and they couldn't really figure things out. And one thing Perry brings to the table is the dragging the team into the fight. He treats every single game, every single night like Game 7 Stanley Cup final. And again, he's not doing it over 18 minutes of ice time. He's doing it closer to 12. But that's another aspect that I think will be. I mean, there couldn't be a better time to inject that into Edmonton.
Well, and I know we've talked about, at least Arm, I know you love Sam Gagner. I know we've talked about Connor Brown coming in. It has not worked for either. Well, Gagner a little bit, but it kind of gets them out of the lineup and allows them to bring more depth.
You're spot on, Jack. The bottom six has been the problem for Edmonton every playoff run that they've been on. When McDavid and Draisaitl, especially Draisaitl, and then when he was on one leg, McDavid, like they've each kind of traded spots carrying the team on these postseason runs, only to be defeated by deeper lineups. This is a big step. It's a big step for their bottom six.
Piece,
and yeah, absolutely. It's exciting. I'm again not unlike Waugh. I'm glad to have the Worm back in the mix.
It's also like I think pretty much every contending team would have taken him at a league minimum contract, or a lot of them. I think Toronto was probably in the mix, but maybe Toronto wasn't the best city for him to be in. Maybe Edmonton was a little bit less enticing and off the ice things.
A little bit more like Tallahassee for a Florida State player in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like maybe he can just like have a little bit more low key Saturday nights there. But yeah, I mean, this is a no brainer. He's gonna bring grit. He's adjusted to his role. Like I don't think he gets enough credit for like going from superstar to grinder.
Yep.
And playing that role admirably and not complaining ever.
Yep.
Like you don't hear him in the media because his teammates don't like him.
All of his teammates love him. That's it. Yeah. And
the only real bad, I mean, it's been a while, but the bad rap really came when he was in Anaheim and was as pesty. For the players that don't really appreciate the Corey Perry, I think that's where.
Well, it's opponents. It's opponents.
Exactly.
You hate playing against him.
Never
he does
him.
dirty
His
shit.
team is always.
I don't think his teammates. I've
No.
heard anything bad
I'm
about
just saying.
him
I
as a
think
teammate.
that's where the real hatred grew from was his time in Anaheim.
Oh yeah, he's a
That's what
dog
I'm
shit
saying.
reputation amongst his
And
opponents.
he was an asshole, but that was
He
good.
is an asshole.
That
He
was
is
like
an asshole.
And it adds
like,
twice
that
good.
to this.
it's a good thing for this team.
Totally.
I'm pretty excited about it. I think great addition. He'll make some impact plays. Also, is he the only guy in the room with a cup?
Ooh, Edmonton.
I think so.
He very well might be.
Ekholm does not. Yeah.
Good
Yep.
point.
Yep.
So you have a guy who's taken deep playoff runs many times.
Wow.
Some experience. It helps. It helps
Crazy.
for sure. Corey Perry, the Worm, returns in Edmonton. Shane Pinto, boys. Shane Pinto has stepped back into the lineup after his long suspension for gambling. The forward, the center, scored his first goal of the season versus the Montreal Canadiens in a 4-1 beating of looking like the Ottawa Senators that they should have all this season. But Shane Pinto returns. It sounds like the locker room has accepted him. It sounds like they really aren't holding anything against him, and they've been very happy to have him as he was cheered back onto the ice for first practice. And I think they were quite excited, and there was a little bit of a soundbite actually to his first goal as he went and kind of just celebrated right with the bench and kind of just got a bear hug from the boys, and it was exciting to see him back and playing some good hockey.
In the immortal words of Brother Blutarski, from this day forward, your Delta Tau Chi name is Pinto. He's back. Exciting, good injection of life into my Ottawa Senators on their deathbed. Really hoping for huge things out of Pinto. He got that little baby extension too. They sorted a little bit of housekeeping and got his RFA status settled. Hey, I'm still take cornered on the Sens. They look like shit, but a little bit of good news, much needed good news for them, and hopefully they can turn the page here.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I also think this is like a big kind of moment for him because Josh Norris, who all the Sens fans were fired up about, missed most of last year, maybe all of last year, and he was thought of as like, oh, we got Tarasenko in here, we got Chikrin, but we also have Josh Norris coming in. This is going to be as big of an addition as anyone, and I see why they thought that. He has not been good. He's just been bad, and Shane Pinto was pretty well-regarded prospect coming in. I wonder, he's kind of playing for a spot. Not that they're going to let him go or anything, but, he could solidify. If he has a good stretch here, he might have that vibe of, what Josh Norris had going into this year. And Ottawa's going to shuffle up the roster this offseason. I don't see how they don't. Maybe even at the deadline. would be good for him to establish himself is because they have a good young core. I think a lot of players would want to be in that.
I get your point. He's fighting for a spot in that core, right? Not for ice time, but in that core.
No, he's going to get his ice time.
What's been interesting
in that
about
core,
it,
though, I get your point.
in my opinion, though, has been that they could have moved on from him throughout this whole situation. I think it had been talked about, but they've been clear that they want him to be a part of this future. Do I agree with you that I think he's playing? I think he is part. I think he is seen as part of the future core here for sure. I think he's playing for money at this point because I think.
Well, I don't know. If they think highly of Josh Norris, they already have Tim Stützle as the number one center.
I hear you, but I just think
this kid Ridley Krieg's up.
You would have moved away from the baggage that he had created this
I just
season,
don't know.
And I think
I'm not sure a gambling suspension has much baggage. I think it's like you made a stupid mistake and you're going to pay for it.
I don't.
But I don't think the franchise is upset at him.
With how much of the eyes and the media were on this team to produce this year. I mean, it was the big kick in the balls to start that season. And so I get it, but
again, I don't think there's baggage. I think people look at gambling suspensions now and like they're mad at them because they look at it and say you can advertise gambling to everyone. They have the gambling. They have Bet365 on their helmet.
I understand.
So nobody really hates on the gambling suspension anymore. It's like you shouldn't have done that, you idiot. But like.
Well, and if
you're not like it's not a stain on the guy.
He had 35 points last year, 20 tucks, 15 assists. If he goes and puts up 15 goals, I think you could look at this being a good bounce back and
Jack,
productive.
I think it's a very natural segue to our next topic. This is
okay. We can go through there.
This is a novel concept, and it's got to be a novel concept to you, Jack. You have a player who makes a stupid mistake and brings unwanted attention on the organization. And you have an organization that looks at what happened, takes a level-headed approach, stands by their player, hangs around, accepts that it was kind of a stupid thing, right? He had a buddy using his account, and it was a little bit of a bad practices error. I don't think Pinto's in a bunch of gambling debt. I don't think it's
proxy
like
gambling
the mob.
is what it was.
And so the franchise stands by him, and now they get him on an affordable bridge deal. There's probably
It's a 1 year. It's a 1 year deal.
Okay. They've got Pinto, who probably looks at the Ottawa franchise as one that stood by him in a very challenging time, and is now very excited to step back on the ice and perform for the logo.
Correct.
Now turning the tables to your Chicago Blackhawks and our good friend Corey Perry we just discussed.
Right.
I think, again, we still don't know the details. We probably won't for a while, but they panicked. They threw their player under the bus. They tried to legally sever ties with him, and they've got absolutely nothing to show for it, except for a big gap between their payroll and the salary basement. So that's a nice segue here into some of these latest Chicago dealings and contract extensions that I would really like to hear from you, Jack. You're not upset with the Blackhawks organization, are you?
At this point in time, no.
Can we cover what they've done in the past 2 weeks?
I got you. I've got it right here. They've
they made 3 signings.
They re-signed Nick Foligno to a 2-year, $4.5 million deal.
$4.5 million a year, 2 years for Nick Foligno.
Yep.
Okay.
They re-signed Jason Dickinson to a 2-year, $4.25 million deal.
Jason Dickinson, $4.25 million for the next 2 years, starting next year.
28. Yep. And then recently of today, they re-signed goalie Peter Mrazek, who I really thought was the big trade piece. And we'll get into this one, but for 2 years for $4.25 for Peter Mrazek, who has played awesome, who's been excellent. Been a bright spot of a really sore season for sure.
So you don't have any problem with that behavior, Jack?
The only issue I have is I guess they have Drew Commesso, who's in the AHL. I think he's looked at to be the future of the goaltending for the Blackhawks. I think they're looking at it as similar to what you saw with teams that allowed goalies to develop and get their minutes and get their time. And so they're allowing the Commesso train, who stepped into the AHL this year for the first year, to grow and be that piece in Rockford as the number one, get his minutes, get his time, get his development, be ready. Commesso is a college star and standout at.
So you've addressed the goalie's position in the Mrazek extension. Foligno and Dickinson.
I see Nick Foligno as potentially the next captain of this team. The role he's taken on with Bedard, they're living in the as much as it's a lot of money to pay. I think you saw Willie Nylander get signed. I think they were looking at hopefully maybe making a run.
This is the Nylander money.
Yeah, Foligno was waiting for Nylander's deal to get done.
No, they signed all three of them to equal the Nylander money they had booked in. They had to cover up that $12 million somehow.
Oh.
And yes, there is that is an issue, and I hear you. But in reality, between the four guys, they have five guys. Sorry, Pitlick, Blackwell, Donato, Kurashev, Dickinson, Foligno. Those are the only guys currently who are playing right now that are earning in the forward group over $1 million.
Okay. Jesus. Okay. Now, tell me what I'm missing, because if I was a Blackhawks fan, I would be picketing the front office.
So
hold on.
Okay.
Tell me what I'm missing. In a league with the hardest, strictest cap that exists in any major pro sport, where bad contracts are a death knell for general managers, front offices, teams' entire futures. And in a league where this is of such high concern, how can you possibly justify giving out over-market extensions to veteran players on affordable numbers that are movable deadline pieces, namely Dickinson, namely Mrazek, when your excuse is we need to hit the cap floor?
I didn't use that excuse.
Hold on. How about making some trades to acquire some bad contracts off other teams' books, and in return collecting all the draft capital that comes with that?
Because they are waiting and trying to keep, as I said, they've got five guys that are making $1 million plus. They're trying to keep the spaces open for the bottom part of the lineup for the guys, that five players that played in the World Juniors, the guys that they have developing in college and in World Juniors, or not World Juniors, in the junior programs of North America. I mean, they're.
So you're saying they have too many good prospects. They don't want more good prospects.
No, I think they're just. I think they're just leaving the space open for these guys to the next wave to be
what space
available
for a bad veteran contract and
it's
future
two guys
picks.
of the forward group.
Okay, Jason Dickinson's value at the trade deadline on his prior deal.
Dickinson's an interesting story to look at because he's a guy who was waived by the Vancouver Canucks, signed with the Blackhawks I think 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, came in, was a factor, and has been a great third line player for this team. He's played second line minutes.
Stop there. Jason Dickinson, 28 years old, playoff experience, center iceman, okay in the dot, good skater, solid player. I think
kills penalties.
He would be an upgrade on almost every team's fourth line.
I agree with you.
A lot of teams' third lines, I'd say.
What could that get you at the trade deadline?
Maybe a mid-second, maybe a third, or maybe a few.
You don't want that?
No, I hear you.
And then also looking at the money that's given to these guys. And again, I'm not saying it's not somewhat earned, but these are obviously above market extensions. Mm-hmm. And they're literally doing the accounting in-house to get to the salary floor for this. Why wouldn't you be on the horn trying to help other teams get bad contracts off their books in exchange for draft picks? Like, you have so much leverage here. Why are you writing checks and eliminating your leverage? Why? And why are you mad about it?
I'm accepting where we are in the rebuild.
But you're not. You're not accepting where you are in the rebuild.
I mean, I still think this team. I said it probably in the beginning of the year that I hope it's probably a 2-year aspect. I think with Bedard missing time and
okay, I'm gonna cut you off. Arm. Am I misrepresenting any facts here?
Well, I think one thing, like you can still go buy contracts. They still have the cap space to do that.
They have $8 million, 8-9, I think, available still.
But like
8-3, sorry.
That cap space is so valuable. Like, why are you just giving it away?
I have a bigger issue with I think Dickinson could have got a second rounder.
Yeah, Mrazek maybe a 1.
I don't know what the trade market is for goalies right now, but those were two valuable assets for a team because to me these contracts indicate they're not planning on contending for at least 2 more years. There's going to be 2 more bad years after this one, at least, which makes sense,
But it's why not import bad contracts and get with it extra draft capital instead of home growing bad contracts just to meet the salary floor? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
They did that a little bit last year with bringing in Zaitsev's deal at the end of the year.
But there's a lot out there that they could do.
So why stop?
I was looking at some, and I'm sure there's some more mid-range ones. I think they should continue to do that. I mean, I think they can.
They're
not really going to pay anyone.
They're hampered a little bit by the obvious 9-5 that they gave to frickin' Seth Jones on the back end, but besides that, Tenorti is making 1.2, but everyone else is under $1 million.
They're not in cap jail, but my point is their lack of cap space.
They need to sell tickets.
That's
Ross.
a tradable
they need to
asset.
Sell tickets. It's a major
that
market.
is such bullshit.
It is a bullshit response.
Dickinson, Mrazek, and Foligno aren't selling shit because they're still not going to be good. And
Thank you.
You and I both know if the Hawks aren't contending for the playoffs, the stadium is going to be as full as it is. You know, the difference between them being, I don't know, not the bottom of the cellar, but 20 points up is not that much. Like, unless they're in the playoffs, the tickets are the same. People don't get hyped about the Hawks till they're good.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong to specifically Foligno? I get's a little different. He'll probably be the captain.
He's the culture.
He's a little bit of a culture. I get that.
The Dickinson one's question marks.
Dickinson and Mrazek. Okay, that is combined what, $9 million in cap space to those two players over the next 2 years.
Yep.
So, what am I missing about that $9 million in cap space?
Well, as I told you about the Mrazek thing, I think they're slow playing the Comesso development. They're trying to get him.
But
they
could
minutes.
go.
They're going to suck anyway. They could get any goalie.
I understand that, but you're seeing what Devin Levi got thrusted into in Buffalo. And
They could go sign Jack Campbell though.
Just let me finish. I think they're hurting Levi more than they're helping him in Buffalo with the minutes he's getting behind a bad or a poor effort that the Sabres have put in front of him. I think there's no rush with Comesso. He's young. He's in his first year of his entry-level deal.
You're still not addressing the $9 million.
He has no, like, you don't have to call him up just because you trade Mrazek. You can go. You can go
not
sign
a big
anyone.
goalie. It's not a big goalie, and potentially besides Jack Campbell, that's on the market that I think is worth bringing. I don't know. I get it. I know it's confusing. I think that at the point where the Hawks are at right now, it is cap potentially trying to meet the cap, but
you could also do that in the offseason.
I hear you.
I would have liked to see Dickinson, Mrazek traded.
100%.
And now with the contract,
I wanted Mrazek traded.
Unjustifiable. There's no justification, Jack. There's none. The goalie thing with Mrazek, you addressed. I still think that's the stupidest way to do it. Dickinson, though? Like
Dickinson's confusing.
Dickinson, though.
I hear you. But he's been, he's another guy that he has stepped into an A letter. And
look at what just happened to fucking McLeod, the third line center in New Jersey. Don't you think they would like Jason Dickinson?
Hey, I hear you.
This to me is some of the worst cap management I've ever seen.
And
I'm surprised no one else is outraged about it.
Well, the only thing I could give them maybe credit for is like the one thing they needed to go right this year did. But like other than him getting injured, Bedard was having a great year
and out for another 6 weeks.
I
know, but fine. That's it. Like they're keeping him cautious. You know, he probably could play now, but why would they?
I've got some loose change on Leo Carlson, and who actually might be the best player in that draft.
But
okay.
Back to the point. If they like the pieces, and I know like Bedard wasn't playing with Dickinson, but if they like some of those locker room pieces, and want to keep the team like somewhat competitive. I understand emphasizing Bedard's development over cap knowledge. You know, I would take getting to Bedard's upside way over a second-round pick, or 2 second-round picks. And I think these might be guys who they like. They keeping them in-house. I think a good general rule in sports, in any sport really, is keeping your good players in-house. And Mrazek and Dickinson have been good. So I'm with you, Ross. I personally, as like armchair GM, am trading those guys. But
it's a head-scratcher.
But I'm telling you, like the one thing they needed to work this year did work.
Well, that gets to my next point, which is what's the most underrated stat in all of pro sports?
I mean, I could give you a lot, but I don't know.
Games played.
Yeah, I'm not with you on that, though.
Don't skate into the fucking ozone and skate your face right
to
into
be fair to
elbow.
him, it was Brendan Smith. And if there's one guy you expect to just back off and let you walk through him, it's Brendan Smith. So he may have been playing a smart play, and Brendan Smith caught an edge and accidentally dropped a shoulder in his chest.
I hear the head scratcher. I hear it. I think a big piece of it is a culture thing. I think they've liked what they've seen with the development. I think they've liked what they've seen from the leadership of that group. I think a Foligno C, Jones the A, because I think he's just getting too much money for him not to, and then potentially Dickinson next year as another assistant could be the leadership group for the next 2 years.
Nothing says locker room culture like a Czech goalie. Give me a break.
I also don't mind. The other thing about Dickinson is like it's not just Bedard that's young on this team. You need to keep some players on the team to look at the Sharks. It's really hard to see development, and I know they have some older players, but it's hard to see development because these guys are stuck.
What gets me excited is Alex Vlasic looks good, and he's developing. He's going to be
we're all on the Vlasic train.
He looks phenomenal.
We're all big time with him.
So I don't know. I mean, I get it. It's a head scratcher for sure, and and definitely confusing to the naked eye. But Kyle Davidson, he's got something up his sleeve. I'm hopeful that it makes some sense here in the next 2 years. And Davidson has really, he's probably got a 3-year window, is my opinion of what.
I just don't understand how they don't look at the league, look at all the bad contracts out there, and try to make a deal. And like it just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense.
I hear you. So we'll see what happens with the Chicago Blackhawks, but they have locked up 3 veterans on some decent deals and decent money for these guys.
They're getting banners. They're getting banners in the stadium.
Okay.
Dickinson's getting his.
Relax. All right, we got one final topic before we send it on to loose change. It's the Vegas Golden Knights. They've been struggling. We know it's an injury fest riddled team for the Vegas Golden Knights, but the reality is after a bad game, a big loss to the New Jersey Devils, where they came back and climbed back into a 5-3 lead. They ended up blowing it 6-5 in overtime, and Cassidy's comments after the game, we basically played a beer league game out there, and we thought it was preseason, I guess. And it was frustrating. And in Jersey, on a good rally and pulled the goalie situation, I think we were able to tie the game late and then scored it with, I think, a Toffoli winner, but who actually had a hat trick in this one. Sorry, Toffoli did have a hat trick. But the Knights, they have been stumbling a little bit, and it's been. Yes, as I said, injuries are piling up. Looking at it right now, it's still, yes, Jack Eichel is still going to miss a little bit more time, as it does sound like the surgery wasn't knee surgery for the superstar. Shea Theodore continues his trip on the IR. Carrier, Hutton, Willie Karlsson, and Amadio.
Like Amadeus.
Are still on the IR and day to day. So the struggles have been real for the Vegas Golden Knights. What do we got on the comments from Butch Cassidy? You're all familiar with him, Rusty, as we know. But the Vancouver Canucks, the Vegas Golden Knights, second in the Pacific, now 4 points behind, with 1 game extra on the Vancouver Canucks.
The Sundance Kid, Butch Cassidy, singing a different tune than we heard around the Winter Classic when asked about the Knights' struggles and how he manages the team in his 32 Thoughts interview. The tone in that interview, which was just about 2 weeks ago, was, I know this team. I have confidence in this team. This group knows what to do, when to do it, and there's a little bit more patience than panic when I don't see what I want to see out of them. There's a little bit more trust. Now, that's what he was saying around Winter Classic, right? Butch Cassidy's background, his first coaching gig, he came up with the Washington Capitals. I think he was a little too young for the role. It was kind of his first head coaching experience, and it was a disaster. Like, the players hated him, the room turned on him, and it made him really unhireable in the NHL level for a number of years. He went to the AHL. He proved he's a great coach, came up through the Bruins system, and obviously had really great success in Boston. He got run out of town in Boston for the players kind of turning on him a little bit. And one thing that was really interesting to see when the tides turned in Boston from the Julien to the Cassidy era is how honest and blunt Cassidy would be in post games about like the players and the expectations. And he's a no BS guy, and he'll just out it. That I don't want to get into the whole, whiny Jake DeBrusk thing and Bergeron ran Cassidy out of town. That's been
Vegas
overplayed. But my point is, now the Knights are really in it, right? They're in one. They've got all these players on the shelf. This is no longer that run-it-back lineup from the Stanley Cup. Now they're trying to make chicken salad out of chicken crap with the lineup every night. And it's just funny to see a little bit of a return to form for Butchie, tightening up the reins and voicing his displeasure publicly.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean it's fair. I mean, we talked about Bednar being pretty critical of his team earlier in the year with the Avs. We've talked about a few other head coaches kind of calling out their big group. I know this is a team that they know that they can get it done when it counts. Helpful news is that they did get Adin Hill back from the injury reserve list, as he made 40 saves in a 3-2 win, like we talked about it, versus the Islanders I think last night or 2 nights ago. But Alex, what do you got on the Vegas Golden Knights at this point?
Yeah, so my initial reaction was like, this was just my first thought. I don't know why he's got to take shots at Beer League. That seemed a bit uncalled for.
Come on,
given
you don't need to come for us.
Probably a decent amount of the NHL's fan base are Beer League players, so relax, buddy. You're not gaining, but I guess in Vegas, it doesn't impact them that much. But I like the comments. I mean, I was looking at the lineup the other night, and I was like, who is playing here? And there was a lot of players I didn't know, I was like, what the heck's going on?
A lot of numbers in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, and I think that's the right time to say, look, like it's a right time to teach, like, this is how we play, and when you don't play the right way, I don't think anyone should take issue with, like, that happening. And, like, coaches hate losing 6-5, That's not a score they like to lose by. If you put up 5, they hope they're winning that game.
Especially if you're winning 5-3.
I know, but like that's just a sloppy defensive game. So yeah, I like the comments. He's missing like I think people underestimate because I think they started to turn down a lot even before Eichel, and that's because Willie Karlsson is like just such an important player for this team. The way he opens up the lineup, like they just throw him with whoever they want and let him shut them down. Like Willie Karlsson, I think is one of the more underrated players in terms of like impact on the game in the league. Because he's got like his definition of a 200-foot game, but really it's turned into like lockdown defensive role. So I think good comments. I wouldn't read too much into it. I don't think he's panicking. I think this is just like, look, let's get our shit together. And also for the young like there's a lot of players who are probably trying to vie for a spot when this team's healthy, right? They have so many injuries that there's a lot of guys who might not be on this roster in 3 or 4 weeks.
Aren't a lot of spots to spare, right?
Exactly. So I think he's like it's kind of a good opportunity for a team that's going to make the playoffs and is going to be like one of the favorites, like they're a cup contender, right? To see who else is there. And I think this is like, okay, we have a bad game. We got a lot of lineup changes. Let's see who's going to respond to this. I think he wants to know who's going to like answer the bell here. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a panic thing at all. I mean, his team's too good for that. But I like the comments. I think any good player will respond well to that. And also, I think they probably just have a pretty good culture of doing that at this point,
I just think it's interesting how opposite it is to what he said 2.5 weeks ago.
How the changes can happen.
And there's a pretty big difference in roster, and they've been losing more. Like I think he may still be comfortable and think they're contenders and still say, I don't like losing 6-5 with a 5-3 lead. And like I think coaches are oftentimes expected to be like these stoic like images that are calm, and like even when they blow up they have it all in their head and they think and process well, but they get pissed off too. And when you blow a lead like that and play it like that, coaches can say things that they don't necessarily mean long term, but it just comes out. And like I know it's not the heat of the game like a player taking a run at somebody, but that's kind of the coach's version, He's been waiting all day, and he's like, I'm just going to ream him out in the press conference.
And they're down their top 2 centers. They're down their Robin defenseman and Theodore, right? Batman's Petro. So it's a tough stretch. It's something to continue to keep an eye on.
And looking at the stretch, I mean, they've got New York tomorrow. Friday. They've got Detroit on Saturday and Edmonton on Tuesday. So a nice little tough stretch of hockey this weekend, but we'll see what happens for the Vegas Golden Knights as they try and right the ship and hopefully get some guys back healthy and back in the lineup so they can get that flow going towards the playoffs. Moving on to Loose Change. Loose Change, the always reliable, the always weekly recap of what happened in the National. Ross, you look to bounce back after an interesting week from you last week. I'm eager to hear what you've got. Hopefully condensed version, maybe just semi-condensed, but hopefully not too restricted, is what I'll say.
Well, I'll start with Miles Wood scoring a power play 2 goal against Boston. Caught that game when they played. I want to say that was Thursday of last week. Just good to see Woody out there mashing at the side of the net. It was a pretty good game from Boston. They answered back. They had lost to Colorado in the week prior. So it was a big win for them. Part of their 5 straight. They're riding into tonight. About to drop the puck in about 15 minutes with Carolina, which is another good measuring stick.
Yep.
Definitely a playoff type of opponent. Jake DeBrusk, right? He's actually had a streak here. He's something like 12 points in 13 games. No, but it's again, don't take the cheese, right? But he needs to get it going. He's showing some signs of hope, but this is what the Jake DeBrusk experience is. It's a streak of 12 games, or 12 points in 13 games, streak of 13 games and 2 points. It's just how he is.
Let me pose you this question, and I
pose you
this question. The numbers are not similar. I think they're both getting good money, but would you rather have a Jacob DeBrusk or would you rather have a PLD?
Ooh, fuck.
I'll ask Armour when he gets back, but
Pierre-Luc Dubois, I'd rather have PLD. He's a center. He's big. He's physical. It's about getting him to do that. DeBrusk's ceiling is not a big physical dominating player. Pierre-Luc Dubois' ceiling is. Pierre-Luc Dubois, when he's fucking off, is embarrassing to watch. It reminds me of Kyle Pitts in the NFL. If you ever watched Kyle Pitts play a game in the NFL, it's just offensive, the effort. And you see that from PLD. And that's a good segue. We were ahead of the PLD story. We'll get to that. But I'd take Dubois 10 times out of 10. He plays center, and he can be the most dominant player in a game. I don't think DeBrusque can. So that's an easy answer for me.
Jacob DeBrusque or PLD in a Boston lineup.
Contracts included?
No. Throw the money out the door.
Yeah, PLD, and you just hope. But, I'm almost past the point. I mean, I guess the comparison is two players that aren't doing it. So, yeah, I'll take PLD. I agree with you. I mean, last year in Winnipeg, there were stretches where he was the best player on the ice consistently. Totally. Almost regardless of who they played. It was pretty impressive stuff. Pretty annoying that he can't just... I know. I don't know. It's hard for me to understand guys who are so mentally unable to be competitive in games, and he's one of them. And I think there's just, I don't know. There's some people like that. I played sports with any different sport with kids growing up, and they just they thought it was fun to play. And it's sometimes some of the best players, but they really didn't care about winning. They didn't care about the team game. They just wanted to do what was most fun to them and most enjoyable. He kind of seems to have that game, and he clearly isn't a workhorse. He doesn't like to skate hard. I think he just likes his moments, but that's not what at this level in the NHL. Even at so many lower levels, it doesn't work that way.
You're not just in the NHL. You're at $8.5 million a year in the NHL.
I know. Yes. I'm with you. It's amazing he's got this far with this mentality. I don't get it.
8 or 7.
Well, it's because the talent's there, and when he turns it on, he's such an impact.
It's not the normal, go flip the switch on the bedroom light. It's more you got to go right, you got to go left, you got to go down, you got to go up, you got to go find it. PLD.
But for him, it's one thing that could flip that switch, and it's just want to play. I don't think he likes to play.
So to me, it's two things. Sometimes you see the effort, and that's just egregious, inexcusable. Mm-hmm. There's not enough bad things you can say about the effort side. But another part, it's. Here I am pulling in all the old Adam Oates points, but it's about not paying attention on the ice. It's he's daydreaming out there, and that is one thing where it's even if you're not absolutely balls to the wall, grinding it out like we'd love to see, if he's mentally present and thinking about the impact. I've just watched so many Kings games where he loses his fucking assignment in the D zone and he's just floating looking for a breakout pass. Man, you are a center iceman, or at least you were until Todd McClellan took
Well, then let me pose you. I guess I don't want to spend too much more time on it. I guess effort wise, what player are you taking?
DeBrusque works harder than what I've seen out of PLD this year.
DeBrusque looks like he's just he seems to more think he's a star player, where I think PLD doesn't want to be on the ice at all.
Right.
I don't think he wants to show up to the building. I think he dreads it.
If DeBrusque played the way that PLD, if DeBrusque was in PLD's headset on the ice, he wouldn't be in the NHL.
No, but if the opposite were true, PLD would be
totally. Yeah. PLD played his game as
with
hard as
the
way DeBrusque plays. He would be a $6 million player.
Right.
Yeah.
If DeBrusque played his game the way PLD's head's been, the way that it's been, when he sucks, he'd be in the AHL or in Europe.
Yeah. Yep. Continue on your loose change. Little distraction there. I apologize. Good debate though.
At our own peril. No, I'm seeing some good stuff from the Bruins depth forwards. Freddie Lauko getting on the board again. He's had a big termite bump since I nominated him. Just seen some good things there with the forward depth. Saw some bad D zone pizzas from Makar in that Bruins Avs game. That was it was interesting, but he's another guy where it's you can't
you can give him that one.
Yeah, and it's just
Lowry still up on the big roster.
Lowry?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been in and out of the lineup. Forbert's come back. I haven't watched a ton of the recent games, but my last point there is Bruins goaltending. We've spent a lot of time on it, but Ullmark was hurt, and Swayman played every single game. Mm-hmm. And he did very well. It really helped his Vezina chances because now he's got those games started stats up. But this was really frustrating to me, the fact that Ullmark goes down and they ride Swayman. What about this guy, Bussy?
He's the AHL guy.
He was the AHL Mike Richter Award or whatever the award is in the AHL for best goalie last year. Why not bring up Bussy when Ullmark gets hurt and do the same rotation where Bussy gets those games instead of Ullmark?
You got a guy he's at a 923 save clip right now. I mean, you're
but
riding the hot
Jack,
hand.
you're the number one team in the NHL. You can afford to try out another goalie,
I hear you.
and God forbid Bussy can play. Maybe you can shop Bussy on the trade market.
No, we know where you're at.
So why do that? And then now, as soon as Ullmark's ready, they go right back to 1A, 1B, 1A, 1B, 1B every other night. And so that just pissed me off. Your thoughts?
A little lack of consistency in your eyes.
It's just, what are we doing? Like, I'm all for, like, pick a goalie, ride him, and have, like, that, like, you manage the regular season, but you're going to ride him in the playoffs. But now that they've decided that they're not doing that, like, why wouldn't they get more of this Bussy guy? I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated that we didn't get a chance to see Bussy when Ullmark missed, like, 10 days. He missed, like, 4 or 5 games.
I hear you.
That's a perfect opportunity to get Bussy 2-3 starts. Hey, maybe he's a disaster. Maybe you lose the games. You can afford it. You can afford it. Jesus.
There's one guy who's ahead of Swayman in the rankings. Do you know who it is?
Got to be Connor Hellebuyck.
Besides Connor Hellebuyck, don't look at the screen. It's your boy. It's your boy. Come on.
Ottinger.
C. F.
L. Charlie fucking Lindgren.
Yep.
That guy's incredible.
Yep.
Every time you see a bad Caps loss, look it up. It's Kemper in that.
I mean, it's unbelievable stuff. I mean, 2.27 goals against.
What's the save percentage?
926.
Jesus. CFL, man.
And Aiden Hill's in the first. I don't think he's played enough games to really register that first number at 935.
Final loose change note in that Bruins Colorado. I actually timed a DeBrusque tip-in that was reviewed. So this is a sick tip-in by DeBrusque. Good for him. Minute 45 on the review.
Good goal.
That's an
We have a
improvement.
goal on the ice.
Good goal. Was the ruling, but it was a minute 45. I took out the timer.
Right.
I think they're taking steps to improve the process.
Under 2 minutes. Under 2 minutes.
I give Connor McDavid a lot of credit. I think they're paying attention to that. So that's a big point.
Oh, it's a big thing when your number one superstar of your league, your face of your league is saying, you need to figure this out. So yeah, yep, they're listening. At least the players feel like they're.
I've got one quick bullet on Vegas New York Islanders. You mentioned the game that Vegas pulled out. Biggest play of that game, Noah Dobson pizza right up the center of the ice, cost a goal. He's had a great year. This was such a dumb fucking turnover.
This wasn't Wah's goal, was it?
Wah's goal?
Nick Wah.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was. It was just a pass. Nope, not pressured. Has time and space. Right. Just wires it tape to Wah entering the zone after a line change. It's probably like a blind spot where Wah was coming in off of a change and he couldn't see him behind other players. But just a terrible pizza that hurt. And then a couple of notes I've got. This wraps up my loose change because I didn't. I've got one more, but I've watched a little bit of the Buffalo Sabres.
Did you watch last night by any chance?
I did watch last night.
I thought it was.
Did you watch last night?
I thought it was the Edmonton Oilers for a little while. I was watching. I mean, it was the small screen at the club, so it was a little hard to see. But I really was confused. I really thought, and then I saw Darlene, and I was like, nope, that's Darlene from the point. But for a second, I thought the yellow kind of looked like an orange. I don't know if that just says.
You thought it was the 14 wins out of 15 games Oilers, or you thought it was the Oilers?
I just thought
out of
the
gates?
jerseys. I just thought that it was the same jerseys. It looked like orange to me.
That's just
of
a bad TV. But this Buffalo team, man, they are fucking gutless. They are fucking gutless. The spark plugs they get on their team. It's this little number 9, Zach Benson. We all know Zach Benson, right? Yeah. Raised by Carnies up in Canada. Tiny guy. He's like Nathan Gerby size. He's like 5'8", probably 165 pounds. He sticks his nose in there all the time. He's always working his tail.
He's a good player.
Mm-hmm. But the lackadaisical play from them, especially in that Anaheim game last night, oh my God, did they sleepwalk through 2.5 periods. It was a joke. You're Buffalo. You're struggling. You were expecting. The season's been a disappointment. You're in Anaheim against a team that you have a chance to beat, right? Yep. They're one of the few teams that suck as bad as you do. And oh my God, was Buffalo terrible and lazy and lackadaisical. Connor Clifton had a terrible pizza he just kind of toe-picked on the ice. And I don't want to beat up my boy Clifton because that was just kind of a tough break, and Clifton's not a guy you complain about the effort, but just looking up and down this lineup, I think I was totally spot on when I said Greenway would be an X factor for them because they need exactly what Jordan Greenway is capable of providing, and they lack exactly what Jordan Greenway is capable of providing. They're getting nothing out of the big man. They needed a fight 3 different times in this game, and they were so embarrassing at the top. All the way down the line, Darlene, a little bit of sleepwalking. Oh, my God, is Owen Power soft. Oh my God, is Owen Power soft?
It's a problem.
Oh my goodness.
And they paid him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
we've talked
goodness.
about it.
And all the young guys just getting muscled off of pucks. Jack Quinn, Peyton Krebs works hard, but it was a little bit just not.
He just works hard. He doesn't have like the skill or physicality to do anything with
But
it. Right
Turcotte, he can be dangerous, but he's given up on plays. Tage Thompson taking way too long of shifts. Jeff Skinner not totally engaged when things aren't going right with that tuck line. Casey Middlestat, God, can this guy disappear and just collect points because he's skilled? I was really disappointed Dylan Cousins didn't do something in this game because they needed a spark plug and they didn't get it. Okposo, we know he's a pro, but he's limited at this stage.
Yep.
Just up and down their lineup. Zemgus Girgensons, who's one of my favorite players. You know his stat
How
line?
long has he been out of the league?
Stat line on dude,
Still in the league.
Buffalo.
I know he's in the league. He was not on opening night roster.
30 games played, 4 goals, no apples.
Did he play last year?
I'm pretty sure he did, yeah. The Latvian forward. He's a
I know
warrior.
he was
80
an all-star
80
starter.
games last year.
80?
Yeah. But like there were just so few guys that were really dumping it out, and they looked so bad. And then late in the game, well, I've got a few Anaheim notes, but late in the game, Buffalo turned it on, and they took a 3-0 game to 2-3, and were really pressing. And then the teams got into all these like scraps late in the game, and the game ended with like again one of these line brawl pillow fights. But like they showed their frustration. It was like, man, where was that at the start of the second period? Like where was that throughout the entire game? And I look at guys like Greenway. Even Clifton, right? Clifton can provide a spark. He can go throw a big hit and like Chuck Nux. And I saw just complete disinterest. They look like a team that's counting down the days in the calendar to go play golf.
Do you think Don Granado makes it out of the season?
I think he'll probably survive the season because they seem to just be in country club mode up in Buffalo.
Really content with what's going on. The Pagulas, man, they got to figure it out.
So that's what I got on. That was a big Buffalo take. Mm-hmm. I've got some notes on Anaheim, but I'll pause if you guys have anything on Buffalo.
I mean, we've talked about it. It's just the lack of consistency and lack of getting going, and it's been just a complete dumpster fire this year from the Sabres. And it's a step back on a young core that looked like it was flourishing at the end of the year last year, and there's some question marks. It's concerning.
All right.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't need to waste air on Buffalo if we're all.
It's kind of like I'm in agreement. I'm concerned too because they've tied up a lot of these guys, especially Owen Power because it's a huge contract, and I don't see mentality right now. And I know we talk about defensemen developing, but I think he looks worse this year than he did last year. Mm-hmm. And also going into next season, what's annoying is like if you're looking at this team, that is a question mark. That's not a stability piece, which is what he's meant to be. And he's going to be a top 4 defenseman in the league for a long time. But you just want him to be a 1 or 2.
And the softness bit, I think we've talked about it physicality-wise. But it's also, I'm not seeing the mental determination. He's turning down shots. He's making these great He's making these great high skill, like great skating, good skills, like zone entry plays, and he's turning down shots, going to try to make that extra pass that's not getting through. And it's just like, man, take charge. Like start to be the man. And
it doesn't seem like he plays confident ever.
Yes.
He also has an issue, and this I think is a skill game recognition issue. He can't pick up guys in front of the net well.
Oh, dude. He had another couple last night.
It happens every time I see him. Somebody gets loose, and he's standing there with no man.
We broke a little bit of our saver for the pod. You brought it up earlier before. We talked about potential re-signing for Mo Sider this year of what his number could be. And you look at Owen Power at 21. He's going to be earning $835 next season. And it's – I mean, you said what? You said maybe 7 is what your ideal number was?
I said 8.
You said 8. So, I mean, it makes you kind of wonder where Mo thinks his value will be and what.
But Owen Power is a bad contract at this point.
No, and there's no denying that you're going to get the effort from Mo Sider, and
he knows how to pick up a man. He plays confident. Like they're very different.
I don't see very many.
I'm just curious where you see I'm curious where you see Sider's number at this point. If Power.
Well, if Owen Power is the standard, then I see it at 15.
But Owen Power's not.
But Owen Power's it's a bet on contract. An early one in that too because they bet on him after 1 year. And that's the downside so far. I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of years in that contract to make it worthwhile.
He still looks like that pudgy kid in his parents' basement playing video games.
He looks like a guy that wouldn't sniff the league if he wasn't 6'6".
Big.
What an attack!
Like he just does.
I
Like,
get it. He deserves it right now. Again, I'm holding out on Power overall.
I'm not out on him long term.
just because Hedman looked so bad early.
I'm not out on him long term, but I struggle with the mentality. In the shot, passing up equates to him not taking the body ever. Him not making decisive plays enough.
Those feel like things that can be fixed.
Especially when you have Darlene, who's one of the best at both of those.
Well,
Darlene is one of the most instinctive players, decisive players, confident
I
players.
was a little disappointed Darlene didn't snap and lose it earlier in that game too. But anyway,
He does it enough. I don't blame him for like Darlene. I'm convinced is a 1A defenseman. You know,
Darlene obviously looked good as he came in, but they've he's in year 6 at this point of his career.
Oh, yeah,
only
he's
22.
but he has a mean
established.
streak.
I think, but
He's been getting pissed off his whole career.
They're willing to wait on, I think, a young defenseman like Power.
Well, they have to.
I don't.
They
I'm
have
not
8
checked
years
in
of
enough.
waiting.
I'm not checked in enough with the Buffalo media, but I want to see if they're really coming after him.
That Buffalo media, they're all fucking pilled out in Western New York.
Still getting over that miss right.
Well, we talked a lot about international hockey. Just the soft North Americans on fucking Buffalo.
Yeah.
I mean, Power, Thompson, those are huge bodies with high-end ability. And they're just gliding around, getting pushed around. It's bad.
And I'm not out on either of them, by the way, but
Yeah, I know.
they look bad right now.
Mario, I
Ditch
was
the Mario
too
tape.
soon on
That's all.
Mario.
There's moments though where he has it.
Although the only knock on Mario.
Keep her firing.
Maybe
Rusty.
Mario was a little soft in his day. Anaheim. Leo Carlson. Oh my goodness. He pulls this epic neutral zone entry, comes in, splits the D. Talk about a jockstrap in the third row, Jeremy Roenick. Oh my God, turns the defenseman inside out. Comes in all alone on Devin Levi. Levi sprawls out. Carlson's coming a left-hand shot. He's coming across. He's got the whole backhand net to shoot in, especially with his reach and the speed he's attacking. What does he do? He goes for the fucking between the legs. And he gets tripped up, falls on his face, slides into the boards. They get a power play out of it. But he literally turned down a goal because he wanted the fucking TikTok. I swear to God. That was troubling, but I'm not gonna lie, watching him this is the first time I really watched a Ducks game.
Oh, and he was hurt for a bit.
Oh, the reach, the skating, the skill. He is impressive.
And he's got natural patience too. Like he's controlled whenever he has the puck.
And I get a little bit of like early Joe Thornton when Joe Thornton started to take the steps. Like when Joe Thornton was playing like a motivated game early in his career, was he started to go from like 1-1 pick that's developing to like major legit player. Mm-hmm. You'd see in the O-zone, his line would just live in the O-zone because he would take 2-3 strides and he would block every lane and he would close on defenders and like and that puck would just stay in there, and once it gets on his stick, you're
Perfect
in trouble.
F3.
And I saw shades of that out of Leo against this just checked out Buffalo team.
Oh, and I think it as much as the Leo, I never realized he was 6'3". I mean, he's got the size.
He looks bigger than 6'3" to me.
He's a big boy.
He plays
He's a
bigger
big boy.
too.
Troy Terry, just 11 goals on the season. You hate to see that. He's not a prospect anymore. He's 27.
He is. He's been around.
He's kind of that mediocre.
How about
I really don't like him.
How about the big one,
Zellweger. So I was keeping an eye on Zellweger. He had a good, quiet game, right? That's
assist?
what you want. No. I'm about to get to his power play assist. But a good, quiet game, doing well with his gaps, his footwork. He talked about his gaps he had an interview after the first period. He's talking about the gaps and everything, and it was noticeable. Like he was totally staying in the right position. You see the skill. Not he doesn't know what color the puck is, as Witt would say, right? It's incredible.
Does he look all of 5'9"?
He does look small, but he is small. That's just who he is. His power play point, right? He took what was there, and in the way that they were working the puck around, there's a miscommunication between Darlene it was actually Power, between Power and Greenway, where they both went to go stop a one-timer pass option, and they gave Zellweger the whole slot to step in, and Zellweger just took a stride, fired one, tippable, and Sam Carrick, the grinder, tips a puck, it bounces up in the air, and then swings the stick around and gets it right under the crossbar. Which was I didn't know Carrick had that kind of skill in him. It's like his third power play goal in the season, so he doesn't really. But that was pretty good. And McTavish, oh boy,
He's good.
McTavish and Carlson down the middle for Anaheim. I think they're gonna move fucking pretty boy Zegras because
it was talked about before the year.
Zegras is big in the rumors.
Yeah, we'll see. He's out for 6 to 8.
I have another Ducks note too.
I think they're going to move Pretty Boy
Before we
Zegers
move
because
on.
they don't need his bullshit skill. They've got real good, skilled, tough, like size, competitive players in McTavish and Carlson. That I mean,
Point.
Take the money and run. What do you got, Army? Before the only other game I got is St. Louis Calgary, which I caught.
Yeah, so I have some Ducks notes here. Well, just one. I think Adam Henrique, if he gets moved at the deadline, could be one of the biggest additions for a team.
Yeah.
He just seems to play like first off, face-off guy.
Totally.
Big time face-off guy. As a 3C on a contending team, I think could be, if they move him, could be really good. And a guy who just has never had a playoff opportunity.
He's a physically
Yeah,
bigger. He's a physically.
One season.
Oh, he went to the finals.
I think on the New Jersey Cup run he was on that team.
Yeah,
but that's the albatross. Every other year I don't think he played very much. But
he's up at the end of the year after 5. This is a
what's
perfect
he
guy.
on? What's his deal? 5?
5'8".
Ooh, that's a
A lot of money.
But they can eat the money and take picks, right? But
And then wait
especially
for
as a
Chicago
rental.
to give him $5 million in the offseason.
Seriously. But his playing style, he's kind of like JG Pajot. A little bit. He's sort of a Army. Pajot and Henrique. Henrique's just like a little bit bigger physically, a little bit slower, fleet of foot. But I agree with you. He's that ideal third-line center. 5'8's a lot for a third-line center. But again,
But if
he's on an expiring
a team
deal.
that can afford it
Totally
for
get
this
it.
season,
But the thing is, nobody can afford it on this season. But you then fork up more picks. They retain salary. That's how you
I
get it
think
done.
it's something that
Somebody has to explain that to Chicago's brass, but that's how you get it done.
he just seems like a guy that would be super valuable.
And you just reminded me, I had another note. Just, dude, the way that Anaheim tried to protect this lead in the final 10 minutes of the game, up 3-0.
I did see the end of it. It was a little scary.
It was like 1990s hockey. They just get the puck high glass, get the puck high glass, get the puck high glass. It was totally a team that does not know how to win. And they let Buffalo
That's what
back
they are.
into it.
That's what they are.
No, it was just interesting to see that.
Playing on their heels.
Anything else on those guys before I get to St. Louis at Calgary? Two teams I haven't seen a lot of.
No.
St. Louis at Calgary. No, go ahead.
Braden Shen had a complete pickpocket of Mackenzie Weegar at the point. Shen killing a penalty and Weegar on the power play there. Shen just pickpockets him right down the ice, shorthanded goal, confident finish, SHG, totally put St. Louis back in the game.
Did you see the Weegar quote on that?
No, what did Weegar say?
Weegar essentially, it's like along the lines of, that was a bullshit play. That's just not an acceptable play that anyone on this team can make about himself.
Okay, good.
Like he was calling himself out. He's like, that's just not what we do here, and nobody can feel like they're away from that. You can't make that play.
I'm glad you get into that because Weegar's a guy, I've always liked his game, and to that point, right, like that's the kind of attitude I want my big-time players having. And, obviously that Huberdeau and Weegar for Tkachuk trade, they had to get rid of Tkachuk. They knew they weren't going to be able to sign him, so they got back, I think, pretty good skilled players in doing so. But what I had sort of the thought bubble last night watching Weegar, I know Montour's had a little bit of a tough year and injuries coming off of that. But basically, Florida made the decision. They had Weegar and Montour, a little bit of a redundancy of skill sets, and they picked the right one. And think about how many franchises are in that kind of scenario, and they pick the wrong one, and it kills them. Or they pick the right one, and look at where Florida is, right? After a Cup final run where Montour was huge, and now here they are. I think they're the most dangerous team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I will say I'm still pretty high on Weegar as a player. I think he's a good player, and I think it's easier to play that role in Florida than it is Calgary.
Yep. This is a bit redundant, but it was just in my face all fucking second half of that game with the power plays they got. Huberdeau, man. He gets so much time and space in the O-zone because everyone's defending the pass. It's like me in beer league. Like he won't skate it. It's rusty. Let's go block a passing lane. He never takes the lane to the net. And he's a big guy that he could score 40. He could score 50 goals in the league. He could if he wanted to.
Especially how they play him now.
Oh my God, it was so frustrating to watch. I don't know how you get through to him. And sometimes it's effort with Huberdeau, but that wasn't really the issue. It's just he's such a fucking perimeter player. It was frustrating to watch. That's what I got on that. You guys got anything?
Yeah, I think Huberto's next contract, they should have a bonus for shots on goal.
I love that. Oh, my God, Army.
Like, imagine.
Army. Oh, my God, I love that.
150 shots on
clip
goal
right
will
now?
give you $1 million.
Or even go for like a nerd stat about shots on goal per time on ice, per offensive zone time on ice.
Yeah,
whatever.
sure, but just like essentially
Shoot the fucking puck.
put an incentive and just see what happens. I think a bad team should do that too.
Ooh.
Like, imagine the Sharks are just like, yo, man, you get 200 shots on goal. We don't care if it hurts the team, but if you do that, we'll pay you.
You know what? Maybe Huberto would be a good fit in Chicago.
Totally. Yeah.
A 7.8 shooting percentage right now for 6 goals, 20 assists.
But again,
6 goals.
Not shooting mentality.
Yeah, yeah.
Shooting mentality. The other guy I got to say on Calgary.
I bet half of those shots affecting his shoot. Sorry, but I bet half of those shots affecting his shoot percentage are botched passes that got deflected
Probably,
off the
yeah.
other team towards the net.
None of them are authoritative. Like, we know they're not aggressive shots.
In his big year, 100 points, he was way more aggressive shooting the puck.
Yeah.
How many shots do you think he's taken all year?
75.
6 goals. Hold on, 6 goals. What'd you say? 7%.
7-8.
6 goals. I'm not good enough.
I'm
at
not doing the
for this.
math.
77.
30.
Oh,
77.
I almost nailed it.
Wow, that's arms wheel.
That was
I said-
eye-opening when you said 75.
I said 30. That's 2 shots a game. That's 2 shots a game, though. That's not enough.
For a guy who gets the looks.
And
Yeah.
the ice time on the power play,
Yeah, he needs to be the 4-shot range.
especially in Calgary where nobody else is shooting the puck.
I know.
Yep.
One guy who is, though, Yegor Sharangovich, having a great year. We talked a lot about the Toffoli. Like, that was the trade side, right? Toffoli. We didn't really touch on Sharangovich, who went back in that deal. He's had a really good year. Like, he's looking like a piece now.
He's got a little bit of an Athanasiou to him.
19.8 shooting percentage for.
Are you with me on that?
I don't know. I mean, Athanasiou is a special player. Like, he really
98,
is so
89,
good
89,
at being bad.
98, 89.
98.
Anywho,
Anywho,
I think Sharangovich, if you're a Flames fan, be excited about that for this year. You know.
Yeah.
All right, working through this. Marco Scandella.
Yeah.
How valuable of a deadline piece would he be?
Yeah, he'd be interesting.
So, I know Buffalo's probably trying to convince, St. Louis is trying to convince themselves that they're in it. Man, Marco Scandella is what every playoff team needs. How bad could the Leafs use Marco Scandella? Like Boston, well, they're not going to do it, but just any playoff team wants Marco Scandella. I think he's such an ideal deadline.
In his final year he's
What's-
got $3 million left.
Oh my God, 3? Like I would do that in a heartbeat.
It's fun. I mean, did we cover the fact that I know we're not talking about Minnesota, but Jared Spurgeon out for the year?
That's a tough loss for Jared. Yeah, and Jared Spurgeon's the guy we root for. That's just a bummer. But final notes here on Calgary. Just they blew a lead. Saad scored a softie late that lost it in regulation with 40 seconds left from 2 feet inside the blue line. Like it kind of tipped off the defenseman that was in his face, but fucking Markstrom had 30 feet to watch the puck change its trajectory. Can't get beat on that. Cannot. And that's just a brutal loss. They were up 3-1 late in the second. They lose 4-3 with 40 seconds left in regulation. That's a death knell.
It's tough.
That is tough.
What did you think of Parayko?
Quiet. He wasn't super relevant in the game.
So I've heard a lot of good reviews on him this year.
I mean, I've watched a lot of his career, especially
I know,
in
but he
in their
kinda-
playoff runs.
I know, and he was sick back then. When he first came up, he was awesome. Then they signed him, and everyone's kind of labeling him as one of these horrible contracts, which he still may be. But I watched him, and I thought he looked okay. This was earlier in the year, but since then I've seen a lot of people say Parayko's really turned it around this year. Got a positive plus minus.
You asked what I thought of him. The fact that my response was not I didn't see a lot. That's pretty good, especially considering the game that I watched was them blowing a 3-1 lead. He wasn't a big part of it, right?
Yep.
So I think he's doing something right.
Yep.
Last 2 notes is this Connor Zary, who wears 47
awesome.
for Calgary. This guy jumps off the screen. I
know.
He was really active.
He's really good.
And he takes the puck to the net.
They won't play him,
his
though.
size and speed. He's a young player, and we'll see. I think he's a second-round pick. I looked him up. He was interesting. Now, here's my last thing. Blake Coleman's season.
He's awesome.
Are we all aware of
2019,
Blake
yep.
Coleman's season here?
I've been on this line, by the way, since last year as being the best line in hockey. It has not been this year because they've separated them. But last year, statistically, advanced stat nerds would say this was the best line. Mangiapane, Coleman, and Lindholm. Or Backlund.
Yeah. Backlund looked a little slow. I'm not gonna lie, but hey, it's small sample. You don't know the schedule of what they're dealing with. But yeah, that wraps up my loose change today, boys. Is that a little more concise?
That was not bad from you, brother. Not bad.
What do you guys got in loose change?
I have a couple. Some of those were covered in like I just covered them in what you were talking about because they were on those teams. Brock Faber, we continue to sing his praise. It really, to me, seems like he's getting better every game. Every time I watch him, it's impressive. Like, you have the steady, defensive, great game that, like, doesn't change for him, seemingly. But, like, he just makes more, like, advanced plays consistently, more, like, impactful, like, splash plays all the time.
Up to 24 minutes a game already. And, you know, you can look at that with the Scandella injury, or not the Scandella, Spurgeon injury, that he probably saw a uptick in his ice time, but he has been phenomenal.
And I'm sure if you look at the last 2 months, it's closer to like 28. I mean, like, they're just riding him out. And, like, I talked last week about, like, reevaluating his potential. I think it's clearly number one defenseman now. And then we're talking, like, how high does it get? Because he's not your new age defenseman, you know? Like, right. I think it's interesting that, like, we talked about Zellweger, that a 5'9" defenseman is regarded as one of the best defensive prospects in hockey. But that's what the new age is, right? And Brock Faber's not huge, but he plays a big game.
He's 6'1", 200. He's got a little
but
size.
He plays he doesn't play that shifty hips.
Right.
You know, he plays a more traditional game, but it's so sound, it's so strong. I don't know. Every time I watch him, I'm impressed, and I already have at this point I still have such high expectations for him, so it's pretty awesome to see. Love his game. I think he has potential to be a top 15 defenseman in the league going forward. Like, if I'm looking at assets of young defensemen, he's in the top 10 pretty clearly, which is wild to me given, like, I don't know, where he was last year, you know.
He only played 2 games last year, but I mean, he is in that Calder
playoffs.
I think he's going to win the Calder.
He could if
I think he should be. He's tied for the most points now.
Wow. No, I mean, Bedard another 6 weeks. He stays healthy, he should win.
Yeah. It's
I think it's pretty clear.
That would have been a pretty ballsy futures bet.
And in wins, as we talked about, I mean, 26 minutes of ice time in wins. It's been a plus 11. And it's been fun stuff to watch for Minnesota and their young defensemen.
Well, especially because they've struggled so much as a team, and they've had to deal with the injury bug on top of their cap situation, and it's been a very down year for Minnesota. And the fact that he's doing so well on such a struggling unit continues to impress.
Oh, and even the front office question marks that were surrounding this team with Guerin and everything that happened. Continue on your loose change.
Yeah, so I watched Canes Wings earlier in the week, and the Canes look dominant. They're very good, but Antti Ranta is so bad. He's so bad. I mean, like, he gave up one of the worst goals I've ever seen, and it's just like I think it's got to be hard for this team to play so well, and just teams are still going to be in it because your goaltending's so bad and nobody can put the puck in the net.
Oh, it's been the big issue with Carolina. I mean, he's been up and down. He's already taken a stint in the AHL with Ranta, and I know Anderson got hurt early in the year.
And Kochetkov is not what people thought he could be.
Well, he's got a concussion right now as well, so it's.
But it's a huge problem. And I say they can't score, and I think they're top 5 in the league in goals. But then you watch how they score because they dominated the game so much. But there's going to be games in the playoffs where they dominate, and Brindenborg's going to be like, we didn't lose that game, and they lose 3-1 with 50 shots, you know?
It does sound like Anderson should be back here sooner rather than later, though, for the positives.
That's a positive. I don't know if he's good either.
Spotty playoff track
6
record
games,
for him.
4 wins, 1 loss, a 8.94 save percentage in the 6 games.
That's fine, but we know what Freddie Anderson is.
I know.
You know.
Yep.
So, yeah, Carolina's interesting. The Wings, we haven't talked too much about the Wings, but they've been hot coming out of the new year.
7-2-1, I believe, in their last 10.
Yep. Had a pretty ballsy win against Tampa on Sunday. Big win just standings-wise, and Tampa looks like, even with Kucherov, just
unfortunately, points percentage-wise, they are it's about even between Tampa and Detroit.
Yeah, they're going to be fighting for a division spot. And wild card spot, too. Like, both these teams are in the wild card and division hunt right now. So that'll be interesting. The Wings are crazy. They played Dallas last night. They get out to they start the game just dominating them, and then give up a too many men penalty, which gets scored on right away. They tie the game up, and then one of the softer calls I've seen in a long time. It was like a fist cross check. It didn't get him with the stick, but he just kind of fell over. I think it was a horrible call. Gets the 2. Anyways, by the end of the first period, it's 2-2. Stars come out and just body them in the second. The Wings were winning. Stars go up 4 to 2 in the second with 4 unanswered. Mm-hmm. Give the Wings team credit. They dominated the third, and they almost tied it to end the game. And, it's I think for a team in the position they're in where, like, good teams are going to dominate them when they play their A game. That's just the stage they're in. They're not, like, one of these top teams in the league right now. But being willing to not give up on a game that seemingly was lost. I mean, the second period was one of the worst periods of hockey I've ever watched.
We're coming up on 14 days without Patrick Kane. What is the latest outlook there?
He practiced today.
That's good.
I think it's. They say he might play the next game, but I think it's more likely he sits out through the All-Star break.
Gotcha. Interesting.
And, I mean, it's Kane. They don't want to risk it.
Oh, and when you got Daniel Sprong playing like he's doing,
Elton Sprong's unbelievable. I mean, this guy.
Dude's a star.
In this Dallas game, he had a crazy pass that like the NHL posted. All the major like league-wide accounts were posting his pass.
Big one on Sunday night, and that one versus Tampa.
Yeah, and the other guy on the Wings who continues to impress for me. It's just annoying because he does things still that piss me off, but Lucas Raymond, the way he sees the ice is incredible. He just has a little bit of the case of he still doesn't want to shoot too much, and he's getting better at it, but
he's got a little Hubie.
But no, because he gets into the dirty areas. That's the thing. Like he's a grinder, but it just like if he could hit 30 goals one year, I think that would be so big. And
because if he had 30 goals, that would be paired likely with 50, 60 assists.
Yeah. And I think he has that potential. I mean, he makes some incredible passes. So yeah,
but what you expect out of him is basically being a 25 goal, 50 assist kind of guy.
Right now, I think that's the safe outcome. I think if he figured out how to score, I mean, like he's probably close to a point a game this year.
You love your Wings upsides, and good. God bless you.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 37 points in 47 games this year.
I'm just saying, it's like not a lot of guys are 50 assist players.
I know. He was the fourth pick for a reason, and on a Wings team that does not promote prospects, he played right away. So I think he's got a ton of skill. So Wings are interesting to watch right now, though, because they have these period swings where it's just like two different teams came out to play.
And Lion got pulled the other night.
That was a courtesy to him. That was not none of the goals were really his fault.
It was just a disaster.
It was just like after that second period, it would have been disrespectful to leave him in that game.
Save him while you can.
It was pulled at it wasn't an on ice pull. It was like out of the locker room.
And I don't think this is like the Lions movement clouding my judgment, but I'd like to see the Wings in the playoffs this year. I think it's time. How much time have we spent in the last 2 years on the podcast talking about Ottawa, Buffalo, Detroit? It's about goddamn time we see one of them in the playoffs. So, pending a major Ottawa surge here, I think Detroit's our last bet or our last hope. And I just like to see what we have there. I want to see Mo Seider in a 7-game series. You know, I want to see Dylan Larkin in the playoffs. I mean, how many playoff games has he played in his career?
0, I believe.
0?
Yeah, it is 0.
God, that's scary. Isn't that scary?
No, it's time, and we got a new stadium that has not been christened yet. Wow. And that place is going to be rocked. Like if they get in, that city loves hockey. There's a reason it's called Hockey Town, and like it would be fun. It would be fun to see it going. Yeah. Might have to head up for a game, after all.
I'm in. It's a 4-hour drive. That's not bad.
I know. And they might be cheap given.
I've done it.
Lions playoff tickets.
Yeah, the recession in Detroit following this run.
But yeah, that's what I got. The other thing, the Rangers just kind of are like fumbling along.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually watched the end of this one of San Jose and New York. First off, the San Jose Sharks have rattled off 3 straight wins. One versus the Ducks and a big win versus the Kings as they continue to struggle. But a big win versus the Rangers is a big picture of. I think it was in the overtime, or if not late in the 5-on-5 in the third. But I think 4 out of the 5 guys on their ice are just diving back, all chest out, Superman diving in the defensive zone. Coming back.
That was a tough screenshot.
It's a tough look, but Thomas.
They didn't give up a goal, by the way.
They did not.
It worked.
And Blackwell and Thomas Hertl.
Bold strategy, Cotton.
Led this San Jose team to a big 3-2 win over the Rangers, and Hertl back healthy. You like to see it. Couture, he's finally playing again. I tried to look at the pieces to see, but Hertl's locked up for a long time at 8-7.
They don't really have movable ones.
They really don't. So I was hopeful to see maybe there's something interesting to look at in the trade deadline with San Jose, but it really isn't that way.
This Barabanov, he's my guy.
Yeah, I'm sure they have some grinders.
Great setup on the goal.
I'm telling you, I think he's.
They like him. They like him down
sneaky,
in San Jose.
sneaky deadline guy.
Mm-hmm.
Could get him for a third, maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on loose change?
I'm ready for Saturday picks. I've already been perving on the schedule, but we got.
Don't you get?
I know. We got Arms Termite. I'm ready for that too. So no, it's all good.
Alex, Termite of the Week, the Woodshed. We led off Loose Change with the Miles Wood highlight. We end it with going to Termite of the Week, the Woodshed. Who's joining the colony as we continue? The last edition before. No, we'll have one more next week of a Termite edition, but we're getting close towards our NHL.
No. Next week will be the Termite episode.
I think
It's going to be the review because it's right before All-Star.
Oh, you know what? No, we should do the Termite one after All-Star break because that'll be a dead period where there won't be games.
Okay, we can.
Right.
Yeah, so one more.
Two Wednesdays, or 2 Thursdays from now.
Who is your Termite of the Week, Arm Dog?
Yeah, so I've been waiting on this guy since last year, like last season, because I wanted to pick him last season. He goes down for the year, and I'm like, this is not the right time to pick him. Like he's injured for the whole year, comes back this year. It's kind of in and out of the lineup, but then gets injured again. So I'm like, oh shit, I gotta wait. But then I think he got an extension, and he returned to the lineup yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. Arbor Zhekai of the Canadians, defenseman who looks like his main goal is to cross-check somebody every play. He gets a ton of penalty minutes. His game is kind of I don't really know what it is, but I know he likes to play.
Has Wi-Fi been added?
No, this is his first Termite nomination.
Sure?
Yeah.
Okay. He was in the A last week.
Well, he was coming back from injury.
It's a rehab start.
I checked today. He played 2 days ago. And he just seems like a guy who needs to be in there. There's also a hilarious video of like this little Canadians fan. He's probably like 12 or 13, and it was last year. He's still like got the super high voice. He's like, Arbor Zhekai is my favorite player. And I'm like, dude, great call that you're picking Arbor Zhekai as your favorite player. That's a good fan right there. Yeah, but this guy just brings the wood. He reminds me, he's not as good yet, but this is his upside in my mind. A Termite of old age, a guy I hated but also respected big time, crankshaft, Douglas Murray.
Oh, I'm so glad you said Douglas Murray. I was just going to say his game is somewhere between Radko Gudas and Douglas Murray. I'm so glad you said Douglas Murray. Do you see how shocked I was thinking Douglas? Same fucking page.
Also, one of my favorite nicknames for opposing teams, crankshaft, because that is exactly what Douglas Murray was.
I stumbled into old Douglas Murray highlights this week on the phone. Oh,
I think in 1929, I think they had to post.
Oh my god! And I remember he was on. He played so many playoff games because he was that guy every team wanted going into runs.
And he was on those good Sharks teams.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And he was a battle ram there, dude.
Absolutely. Apparently, like one of the all-time best beer chuggers ever.
I'm not surprised by that.
100%.
When your name's Douglas.
Least shocking thing.
Come on.
And he's a Swede, Douglas Murray.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I know. Dude, I love the comp. I'm right there. I was thinking that right in my head after watching a little bit of Radko last night. So I love the nominee. Again, it's gonna be tough when we sit down with this roster and we start looking at our soldiers and our builders, right?
Yeah.
I think we're long on soldiers. We might be a little shy on builders, but we're gonna craft a balanced roster, a balanced colony. I'm really excited for it, and I'm looking forward. Now, with our advanced production methods, it'll be a lot easier to find them with the timestamps and the regular point in the pod where they are. It's a little tough navigating those early epis, but I got through the grunt work, and I'm making my way. Are you doing Termite next week, Jack?
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out.
Oh, that's awesome! Awesome. We get one more SIF nominee.
We're gonna figure it out. I mean, we got Wednesday
before cut down day.
The 31st is the last day before the All-Star break, before we head into the weekend. So we'll play it by ear and see where that Termite show comes into to play. Saturday picks. Like I said, and as I hinted at it in the beginning of the show, we got two guys that are sitting at 9-5. Rusty and I, unfortunate picks. Alex hit with the Dallas Stars last week. Since we've got a little bit of a tie, unfortunately, since Ross has been in first place all season long, I am going to allow him to pick first. And then
not
Alex,
all season, but he
of
holds the
season,
crown.
For the majority of the season, it's been Ross' show. Ross 1, Alex 2. I will pick third. What is your Saturday pick, my friend?
Sticking with today's theme, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I stay away from matinees, but I'm breaking my own personal rule. Got a matinee in San Jose, Buffalo, on this same trip after that Anaheim game we watched. Buffalo's soft, and the Shark, like the what do they call it? The Shark Tank.
Yep.
The Shark Tank in this losing season on a Saturday matinee at 12 p.m. local, 3 p.m. Or 1 p.m. local, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's a sleepy spot for a soft, unengaged Buffalo team to sleepwalk through and for San Jose to wake them up. So I'm sticking with the fucking Sharks, man. Sharks on home ice, matinee game, Sharks over Buffalo Sabres. Tough watch. Don't expect you to watch it, but I'm picking Sharks.
And I think for the first time all year, someone has picked the Sharks to win a game. So interesting. Good for the Sharks. Good to see them in the action.
Well, we'll
Should get
see.
some plus money there.
So
We'll see.
I think so.
I don't know. They're on a streak.
you've got Vegas coming on Saturday night to the dojo. Is that where you're heading?
No.
Good.
I want to, but I figure for the viewers, add some variety.
My mind's
However,
telling me no.
if you're looking
but
for some
my
extra
body-
juice, if you're looking for extra juice, I would totally take that game. Like it was totally a game I wanted to pick, but
If you want to quad box the Parlo,
yeah, I mean, trust me, I would have loved to pick that game. I have confidence in it, but I'm going pesky here. I'm taking Ottawa Senators hosting the New York Rangers in Canada.
saw this one. Oh boy, up in Canada, Ontario.
Yeah, I just think the pesky Sens, maybe a Pinto winner. Also, we get the return of Pinto. How are we not betting on him? You know, come on.
Tell your friends, have them use your accounts.
Yeah, we'll all place the parlay for each other. Just kidding.
Wasn't expecting that one. Was not expecting that one.
JK, LOL.
Looking at the schedule, looking at what I'm looking at. I mean, the Rangers are on a back-to-back, so they're coming from New York to Ottawa. So they will be
Walking into
flying.
the pesky Senden in Canada.
Yeah, baby.
I look at it. I like the Florida Panthers to come into the New York Islanders at a 6:30 start. Yes, the the Panthers are coming over from Pittsburgh, but I like the Florida Panthers to beat the Islanders in New York. And I get the head shakes as always. It's all right.
That's such a. I was looking at the Islanders. That's why.
Yeah, me
Like
too.
you have a
Me
knack.
too.
You have a knack for picking the opposite of games I'm looking at. Like I was considering picking the Islanders.
It's the Wah regime. Like, I don't know. But
The Florida Panthers, man, they're just too good.
Yeah,
They're
I
too
know.
good.
I'm just a little worried that like
Again, you guys are sitting
It's
at 9-5.
minus
You're
money.
4 games above.
minus money for a
500.
pick'em game. Like, I don't like it.
I hear you. I'm sticking with my guns, and I like the Florida Panthers to beat the New York Islanders. Final closing thoughts on the episode, boys, before we send her on home.
None for me.
go Lions, baby.
Go Lions. We'll be in Ross's apartment for potentially the 3rd week in a row if we're allowed.
Open invite on Sunday.
Yeah,
love it.
listeners, you're all welcome. If you have a team that you want to win that's not the 49ers, but any team, it works. Just sit on Ross's couch and then move around a little bit. You know, sometimes crouch in front of the TV. I'm 2 for 2 on that thing. Well, actually 4 for 4, I should say, because I've had 2 Wigs wins and 2 Lions wins the last 2 weekends go down.
Hey, boys.
Oh, you can't break that streak, dude.
I will.
If you've got questions, comments, concerns, where can you find us?
Slotshotpodcast@gmail.com.
Hop in the mailbag. Paulie, we always see it. We love it. Keep it going. It's been flowing. If you want to follow the boys, go follow Ross at Rusty Pedroia. Go follow Armdog at Armdog_SS. Give me a follow at SiffyMan. Follow the pod at Slotshotpodcast on Instagram, YouTube, all the social medias. We appreciate the love and support. If you like the videos, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button directly below this video, but we appreciate it. We'll see you guys here soon next week for another fantastic episode before the All-Star break. And then don't forget the All-Star Termite selection team is coming. The show will be here. We're excited. Maybe we'll dress up for it. We'll see. I mean, it's a big night. It's a big one.
Yeah, I'll pull out my termite costume from 3 Halloweens ago.
Oh, yeah.
Termite mask.
Love it. Well, everyone have a fantastic week. If you're in the cold, stay warm. If you're in the warm, stay enjoy the outdoors, and we'll see you guys for next week's pod.